This is the October 20th meeting of the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission. Commissioners present are Shelton, Kiesling, Martin, Abbott. We have a regrets from Langley. We have guests of Charlie. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your last name already today. Greg Garataz. And we have Lisa Ridge with us today. Larry Allen with us today. Katz is with us. And Jeff Cockrell from staff is with us. And somebody just joined. Oh, that's the TSD host. Okay. And this is Richard Martin. So we have a quorum of the commission ready. Anything to open up with, Jeff, or do you want to launch directly into the State Road 46 stuff?
No, I think we should launch straight into the State Road 46 stuff.
Okay. You want to lead?
I will kind of give an update, and then I may turn it over to Greg to go through his analysis. And when that happens, Jonathan has it that he can share screen so everybody can look at the screen and do that.
Yeah. All right.
That's good.
At the end of the last meeting, or during the last meeting, we discussed continuing conversations with which would include the financial advisor, bond counsel, and the developer for the State Road 46 and an RDC member. We had that meeting. I've sent out the summary of that meeting earlier, but I'd like to just kind of go over kind of some of the discussion and the thought process and the potential paths forward for this. We discussed the two, and maybe this would be helpful, Jonathan, if you could show the map of the 46 as a screen share, so we all know what we're talking about.
There we go.
Yes.
Good.
And so we discussed the two projects you see here would be the blue line that says Hunter Valley, and then the red line that, if you could scroll up a little bit, Jonathan, the red line that would connect to 46. Those were the two projects we focused in on. If you recall from the last meeting, the total of those two projects without the engineering costs and those kind of things was approximately $8 million. After that meeting, Highway Department worked with Steve. They think that they didn't have the right depth of, it was either rock or asphalt for the Hunter Valley Road in the plan. And so that actually had an additional 200,000 added into it for the estimate for that project. So between the two projects, we had roughly 8.2 million in construction costs, I guess would be the right way to put that, with some additional costs that would also be incurred for permitting and design work. So we sat down, we focused on those two projects. We looked at estimating the engineering costs and some of those other costs, and the amount we came up with for a total cost for the Hunter Valley Road was $4.5 million. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the bond for that. That includes the bridge over the creek there. And I think we had a similar estimate for the redlined road on this map as well. But we were focusing on 4.5 each, and with the potential of cost overruns, I think we were looking at total combined to be about $10 million. So the current revenue generated from our current investments or the current buildings in that would support a bond of a little over 3.1 million. And Greg will correct any inaccuracy in that when he comes up to talk. And so we were looking at both of these projects, getting them under a single bond. When we looked at the concern, and then we all prioritized the Hunter Valley and wanted to get that done as quickly as possible. And the revenue would come in at not quite what it would take to go to market for the bond, but Mr. Kreider, who was also involved in that meeting, indicated that that was a risk he was willing to accept. He was also willing to accept it for the Red Road, but when we discussed and talked it through, there was little likelihood that there would be any TIF revenue available in the next 10 years to do the repayment on that road. And so we kind of brainstormed and thought, what would happen if we kind of carved out the areas of the TIF that haven't been developed yet and created a new TIF, which would then have the new 25 years. Now, the areas that have been developed, we'd want to maintain because the increments coming in, but again, that would have a 10-year lifespan to it. We didn't talk about the type of TIF or anything like that. And I indicated that I don't think that we could have that kind of conversation for the new TIF done this year, that would be something that we'd have to look at to do in the next calendar year. And then the third thing we talked about is, and once that TIF was, if we chose to go this route, if that TIF was in place, the bonding for what is the Red Road in your picture. So that was our conversation. I think tonight, I wanted you to know all that, but I think the immediate question that needs to be addressed is, can we proceed going forward with the bonding for the Hunter Valley Road? Because we have a limited time frame to get that done if we want to complete it this year. So I think that's the question for tonight. And after that, I would answer questions, but I think maybe it'd be better if we turned it over to Greg to go through his presentation and then maybe take questions after that if the RDC is comfortable with that.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Greg, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon, everybody. Greg Garotas, for people on TV or wherever, my name is Greg Garotas. I am president of Financial Solutions Group and have served as the financial advisor to the Redevelopment Commission for quite a bit of years. And so happy to talk to you tonight. And Jeff, just to make sure we start off on the right foot, anything we talk about on the bonds, we will not, the Monroe County will not market the bonds, but the developer will buy the bonds. And so they'll be specifically taking the risk on the bonds with no property tax backup. And Jeff, that's kind of how I understood it. Are you in agreement?
That is correct.
Okay. And so I believe Jonathan will be putting up our report, our financing analysis. Keep in mind, I'm going to call this number 2. And the reason I'm calling it number 2 is we have done this before with Stephen and this area. And those bonds got done on February 1st of 2021. Okay, and so they're gone. So we have no outstanding debt. And is that your understanding, Jeff?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, I'm cross-examining you. I don't mean to be, but I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page. And so your TIF annual report that I filed early with you this year, on approximately $250,000 coming in per year. And I think Martin had asked me about that. And we did project at around 4%, that roughly a $3 million bond issue. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is now moving this district to what I call project number 2. and bond number 2, and this would be the tax increment revenue bonds of 2021. And please, commissioners, stop me at any point in time if you have a question. As you can see, we use the estimated cost of 4.5. And Jeff, I don't know, do you have the North Park Hunter Valley Road Extension detail cost? Do you want to show that at any point in time? In case anyone wonders how we got to the total, it's not in this sheet. It's not in this report. It's a standalone page.
Yeah, and I can pull that up. I sent it to the RDC for last month's meeting.
Okay. So then if you all remember, if you can't pull it up, Jeff, I could probably find it here, but that has all the details of earthwork, bridge, storm sewer, pavement, utilities. So if you have any questions on that, I'm probably not your guy. Lisa would be the expert on those type of things, but that all totals 3.8, and then we put estimated engineering on top of it. And then Jonathan, we can, if Jeff wants to come back to that page, we can go to the page that you were presenting, which was the estimated sources and uses. And again, what we would start the documents with is not to exceed 4.5 million. We would then have the project cost. And my assumption is, I think we talked about this with Steve, that this would be considered kind of a draw bond, Jeff. And so he would basically buy the bond. So we'd put the 4.5, so to speak, in his name. And then what he would do is draw it down from the trustee bank that we all agree and draw down those proceeds, kind of minimizes the interest cost to him. And then since he's paying them direct, and works out pretty well. So that's how we normally do this. And then Jonathan, were you going to show our report again? Sorry. There. So there's the information and the overall 4.5. And again, that's what we would do as a not to exceed. So the goal would be that if the project came in less, we wouldn't draw down as much as we needed. And so the final bond would be anywhere from 0 to 4.5 million. Obviously, that's a very large gap, but it'll be closer to the 4.5. I made a note down there in number 2. It's because we have developer involvement and everything like that. We do not have to have the debt service reserve fund that we have on our other bonds, but this again would be similar to one of the other developer bonds that we did. And so that would be an overall savings. So on the next page, Jonathan, better turn my phone down. On the next page, you'll see the estimated debt service. Again, this is assuming that all of the 4.5 million would be drawn on 12/16. We do not expect that, but that's what we have at this point in time for illustration. And so it will take development, obviously, to pay this level of debt service. But I think we've got, again, the full faith and credit of Monroe County as not backing these bonds. So this would be on faith with the developer. And if the developer does not perform, then the developer does not pay his bond. And so, but we do have some cash flow that'll help a lot better off than when we started very, very early on many years ago. So that's the only pages I have, because at this point in time, it's an estimate, it's hypothetical, and until we start moving forward and start crossing T's and dotting I's, then we will not have, we actually won't have exact numbers until we get it even into the project. So Jeff, I'm sorry, did I miss anything, or you think that I should follow up on any conversations we had with Steve?
I think I think you've covered what I expected. I think if the RDC members have questions, they're more than free to ask.
Okay. Jeff, should we demonstrate for them why this is ending at 2033? And that's because that's a pre-existing life of the TIF district, correct?
Correct.
And so we were on this not going out beyond 2033 because technically that's when this portion of the TIF district would be over.
And I think technically it's 2032, but the last payment's in 33 to allow for the winter settlement.
You're correct. That's true. So questions from the commissioners?
Well, if we decided to do a new TIF, would this somehow move into it, or is this just stays in the existing TIF and the new TIF would only address the Red Road?
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
And Greg, the new TIF would not address this.
Okay.
I think because, well, and I think that when we look at that new TIF, and I've got another map that I worked out with Jared, Richard Martin, I worked out with Jared that shows where the current revenue, the current increment's coming from. And so I think that's going to be an important part of the conversation when we look at the creation of a new TIF, because it would not include where we have current development.
All right, but our decision that we need to make about this is unrelated to the new TIF.
That is correct at this point in time. I guess
Okay.
the decision to do this bond, I think, is independent of that consideration.
Well, that's what I was trying to say.
Because when we talked to the developer in this case, he indicated that he is comfortable with the carve out, because if he wasn't comfortable with that carve out, then it would be hard to do, because we would be taking things from the existing TIF district and removing them, which you can't do without the bondholder's consent.
Thank you.
Jeff, can you share that map showing where the increment's coming from, or just email it to us?
I can email it to you. I got it late today. Jonathan, can you put up that map? It would be the third one. It would say assessed value in the title.
Okay.
Can you scroll down so we can see the legend? Thank you.
Yeah,
Jeff, I think this is an awesome map, and I know Charlie helped you get some of the AVs by parcel, and I think this is really helpful.
yeah,
And this is the first go around with it, because we just didn't
Okay.
have a time to analyze it and review, but you can see where the red are the kind of high value,
okay.
high assessed value, and the purple is the least. And I was curious when it was created about the light blue where there isn't any development. So I want to go back with and look at the report, and then also with Jared, our GIS guy, to kind of fine tune it. But I think it gives a kind of a good view of, because in the summary we gave, we kind of used the northwest of, or northeast of 46 as kind of what we were talking about in that meeting. But I think if we were to correctly identify it, we would have said the currently non-revenue producing parcels versus the revenue producing parcels.
When
And-
you run this map again, can you overlay the area that we were looking at for the residential component?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
And Jeff, and several of the parcels are ZZ state. Is
Mhm.
that the state of Indiana, or do you know?
I would think that's, excuse me, probably the parcels along 46. So I would think that would be the state of Indiana.
Yeah, because those are zero, but I've not heard it ZZ state. But
The
Right.
current nomenclature when we run things through the recorder and the auditor is they've historically have used ZZ before any municipality. So there, if you look through the recorders and the auditors books, there'll be ZZ, City of Bloomington, ZZ. It's just
Okay.
how they've differentiated those kind of things.
thank you.
Well, Jeff, if you're going to fine tune this anymore, would you send it to us? Even if you send it to us like this, it'd be helpful for us to look at it more clearly on our own computers.
Oh, absolutely. I will send this to you. Right now.
Now, it looks like there's some blue pieces that have been carved out for on the west, on the Hunter Valley Road to the, let's see, west east of it. That makes me wonder what somebody is doing there. Got a little annexation in there too, looks like.
Well, and yeah, and then that's one of the things I want to look at. I don't know why some of these
Doesn't make
parcels.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Depends, it might depend on the owner too. So Jeff, what's our timeline about doing this TIF with Steve?
Well, if we want to, I think we need to really get going right now. I think we need to have an Economic Development Commission, has to go through 2 council meetings. And then it also has to go through another RDC meeting in order to get it going. So I guess if there are any questions on whether or why we would want to move forward with it, I'd love to address them.
Has anybody talked to the council members or commissioners?
They're all aware that the
Okay,
RDC is looking at doing this, and they're well aware that the hope is to get it done by the end of the year.
okay, good. So do the commissioners have to sign, the county commissioners have to sign off on this after everybody has seen it?
I believe so.
Okay, you didn't mention it, but I thought that was the case.
Well, I would imagine they would, if they bought the financial analysis, they will be in favor of it. It provides access to that quarry land that they're,
Right. I would think so too.
And I think that was certainly part of the conversation when we were looking at the properties along Hunter Valley
Right.
and purchasing them. And I think the plan is to close on those by the end of the month.
Good.
and then at a commissioner meeting, let's see, it was a couple of meetings ago, the affordable housing group that they've set up was kind of complaining that they had not approved any of those more dense things down in Clear Creek. And they were saying they didn't think the Clear Creek was a good place. They still want development. They still want housing. And they specifically described this general area, not, no specifics, just this
Right.
area. So
one of the desirable things here is that all of this land in the TIF most of it is in a PUD, and in that PUD are a very large number of residential opportunities, both single family and multifamily.
Right. That's good.
Yep. I mean, there's enough designated developable land here for residential to provide an inventory for many years in the future.
well, and it ought to be a good place for commercial industry, et cetera, because of the access to the highways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of it is designated for commercial development. So there's a full PUD here that has a balance of commercial and residential development, as well as dedicated green space and other amenities that have been planned in that PUD.
Do we need to take any action today?
Yes. I think we need to take a resolution to proceed with the creation of the bond documents and their presentation to the various county entities that are necessary to approve the bond going forward.
Well, I would certainly be willing to move that, but Jen Pearl's got her hand up. Why don't we see if,
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a question about that as well. Do we generally do this without a written resolution?
No, I think that's what he's asking, to create a written
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, the written resolution. Yeah, Jen?
Thank you so much, and it's great to see you. Jen Pearl with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. And I was just curious, building on the comments regarding the PUD, if the RDC has certain goals for development tied to the bond and ways, we can support as a community, would it still be along the lines of what's in the PUD, or would there be strategic updates to it, or any other thoughts on it?
The PUD is somewhat dated, but it is the guiding document at this point in time. So
Right.
far, all of the development that has occurred has been consistent with the PUD, which has most of the commercial development in the area that is red along Curry Pike.
Okay,
And up north on 46, there
Yeah.
are a considerable number of properties, opportunities available for commercial development still in the PUD that have not been developed. In particular, the area along Curry Pike to the east of 46. There's quite a bit of commercial available in there. And then there's also commercial development available down to the south. A lot of that commercial property was actually purchased by IU. And
right. I remember that.
is going to be, they are starting to utilize it. They've utilized one building there. They're building another one for their EMS activities. We don't know what else they're going to be putting in there, but it's available to them for expansion of IU and IU health related activities.
Thank you, and we're happy to help if we can.
Yeah, and there are opportunities to redo parts of that PUD going forward, but that's another issue that would have to be dealt with, and probably won't occur unless there's some real on the ground opportunity that springs up that needs to be dealt with.
And I would go to Lisa Abbott's question is, I would hope that the resolution today is for me to go ahead and move forward with all those. And I don't think it has to be in the form of a resolution, but just giving me the blessing to go forward with all those. As part of this process, it will come to you for a formal approval, most likely at your November meeting if we move forward with this.
Right.
But I certainly don't want to move forward with this unless you guys are comfortable with that occurring.
Well, I'm comfortable. The arrangement you outlined, there's no risk to the county. This is what we've done successfully with this TIF so far, and what we're doing really with the Curry Profile TIF. So, and it really opens this land up for potential development, as well as servicing the quarry park, or whatever it's going to end up being called. So,
Right.
So just to be clear, though, what we would be doing today is passing a motion to have you move forward to bring something back to us for our November meeting.
And to proceed, and I'm going to take that as the blessing to proceed forward with the other steps that include other bodies in order to get this done.
So if I remember correctly, so do you consider this is, if memory serves, the first step is the redevelopment commission approves it, then it goes to, this doesn't have to go to plan, so it would have to go to county council twice and then come back to us and then go to the commissioners?
I think it'll go to the Economic Development Commission.
Okay.
And then it will go to the county council. I think the current schedule is it would go to the Economic Development Commission in early November. It would then go to the county council for a first reading at their November meeting. And then it would come back to the RDCs to pledge the TIF revenue towards the bond. And then it would go back to the county council for the final approval of the bond itself.
So this would be the first step of us approving moving forward with this bond.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I presume the last people to see it is the county commissioners. They have to sign off on that, don't they?
Yes, I will double check with the bond council. The commissioners meet every week, so getting it on their agenda has never been something we've worried about as far as schedule.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
And we've already had a good conversation with them.
Oh, good.
Okay, so Jim are you willing to state a motion of some kind here?
Yes, I move that we authorize Jeff Cockrell to start the process, generate the paperwork, and arrange the liaison, if you will, with the other bodies that will move this forward.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jeff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Abbott,
Sorry, couldn't find mute. Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiesling.
Yes.
Motion is approved 4-0.
Okay.
And I might note that Ms. Langley is absent in that vote.
Okay. Any further comments on this State Road 46 issue at this point?
Well, I have a slightly related question.
Okay.
The commissioners, I understand it, indicated they didn't want to meet with us and talk about residential TIF until October, which has got, what, 11 days left to go. So I'm wondering, has there been any movement, Jeff? Or I assume you who they probably talked to. I know they got a lot on their plate right now.
They do, and I think we're working to schedule a meeting with Lisa Abbott and Christy Langley in early November so that they can have that conversation in kind of an administrative setting.
Okay,
Yeah, my
good.
understanding is that it is, we'll call it tentatively scheduled for November 3rd. Is that not correct?
If that's the first Wednesday of the month, that is correct. I don't
Okay.
have a calendar in front of me.
It is.
Great. I'm glad to hear it's moving. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And I can tell you that when we did talk with the commissioners about this, that the notion, we did mention that there was a possibility for residential TIF as part of the plan for this, because there is an ability to create 25 acres of residential TIF within this existing TIF district. So that's one of the things that's available to us as an option.
Well, good. And when we first started talking about this, I was worried that they wouldn't be interested in putting sort of density here, but based on that comment, which Lee Jones made, Julie Thomas was not there at that meeting that I referred to earlier, but she and Penny both seemed to think, yes, this is a good place to put residences. So good.
Yeah, well, it's been part of the PUD for this area for a long time now.
Yeah, I think since I was on the plan commission, I think that's when we put it on. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All
The
right,
only,
so-
the only thing I would add to that is, you know, this is just the first step of that three-step process. So I think we really need to continue to move forward with the other two. And I think the residential TIF conversation with the commissioners is a key component to that.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So that will conclude item number 2 on our agenda, having to do with State Road 46 corridor TIF. I want to thank those who chimed in for this. Greg, in particular, for the support that you and Charlie have been giving us. And I think there's more for you to do as this goes forward.
That's right.
You're welcome. We appreciate the work and appreciate the effort.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to our claims. We have before us a set of claims. We have 3 claims before us to approve. All 3 are from DLZ. One in the amount of $19,250.70, another one $18,565, and another one for $405. I had there was some confusion on my part, I think, because when I looked at the supporting documents, I couldn't match up all the numbers, but that turned out to be because one of the items was already in a contract document. And Lisa Ridge has sent me a copy of that now, so I have all of those. And that I seem to then, things are correct here. The construct inspection is one that I had to sign off on because it's under a federal contract.
Right.
The other 2 are parts of it, but they're already in the contract and billed through the contract that way. Okay. Are there any questions about the claims that were submitted?
So David Martin, sorry, Mr. Martin. The total claim is $30,220.70. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
That's what I wrote down.
38,000.
38,000.
Oh, okay. I can't read my writing. That's what happens. Thank you for telling me that.
38,220.70.
Okay, I move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the claims in the amount of $38,220.70. Jeff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiesling.
Yes.
Motion is approved 4-0.
Okay. Next item on our agenda are minutes. And Jeff has sent us minutes for August 18th and for
September 15th.
September 15th. Right. Somewhere I have them sitting here.
Yeah, I understand completely.
Okay. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes?
I will abstain on the 15th, September 15th.
Okay,
Do you want us to do separate motions for each set of minutes, or do you want one motion?
yeah, because I've got to abstain from the 18th, so maybe we
Okay.
got to do Jim wasn't there either, so how do we?
But can't we vote for them if we watched Cats? If we,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to vote. I
Okay,
watched
good.
Cats, they're good.
All right.
Okay, I will move that we approve the August 18th minutes. Did I have that right, Kate?
Second. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the August 18th minutes. Jeff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Martin,
I abstain.
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes,
Commissioner Kiesling.
Yes,
Motion is approved, 301.
Okay, I will move that we approve the September 15th minutes since I attended all of the meetings.
second, since I watched it on Cats.
Thank you, Jim.
We have a
I
motion.
could
Did we
not
have a-
see it, and
did
I
we
don't
have
know
a-
if I saw the Cats program of it or not, because I was pretty incapacitated for
Oh, yeah.
2 or 3 days.
We have a
Perfectly
motion and a second
understandable.
to approve the minutes for the September 15th meeting. Jeff, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes,
Commissioner Kiesling.
Abstain.
Motion is approved, 301.
All right. Staff comment time. Let's begin with Lisa. Lisa, can you update us on projects around the county?
I
I was going to say country, but that's probably a little farther than your jurisdiction.
I do think it is. So the Curry Pike, Smith Pike, Woodyard Road project is moving along with utilities. We meet every 2 weeks to try and keep everything on track there. We have made some headway with the railroad for the Vernal Pike Trail connection. That's to Loesch Road to Vernal Pike. That's been in the West Side TIF as a project for a few years. We are working on finalizing the contract between Indiana Railroad and Monroe County and hope to get that onto the commissioner's agenda. I do believe it has to, technically it comes to you guys first, but we're still working out the insurance issue. So I don't know how we want to handle that, Jeff, and Jeff might want to comment a little bit more on that. I believe that contract, I don't have it in front of me, was in the $20,000 range. And that's to, again, for the Vernal Pike Trail connection that we've been working on for years. I think this is the first progress that we've had on it in 6 years that I've been involved with it. So we are happy that we are moving forward on that. We also, Vernal Pike connector, all the appraisals are out. High Tink and Central Supply were granted 30-day extensions for their timeline so that they can work through the offers that they were sent and get back with us on that. Jeff can go over, if he wants to go over a question that was raised to us for a swap of a property in that. I think that was one topic that he wanted to discuss. Other than that, I don't really have anything else unless somebody else has any questions on any other project.
well, Fullerton Pike extension is,
It's still moving along. Actually, we moved into right-of-way acquisition for that. So everything is being appraised right now. So that'll take a few months for that for us to get the appraisals back.
great, thanks.
Mhm.
Well, just a comment. Once, well, this won't happen until next spring, but once we know what's actually being annexed and what's not, we need to look at the timing on that thing, because if it's, as we learned when we had the city folks here, and as we knew, since we have no debt, the TIF will cease to exist, as I understand it, when it becomes effective. Now, since it'll probably be in court for a long time, I don't know, it's just something to keep in mind and watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to know what the outcome of that's going to be, just because I know it's all going to depend on the remonstrance and then
Right.
the auditor decision and then what happens after that point.
Well, yeah, and then, court, so.
Jeff,
Okay.
can I ask you a question on that, a legal question? If there are some areas, some sections that don't meet the criteria for remonstration, will those go forward even if the other areas are in court, or will it, since they put it forward all together, will it be all held up?
Well, they didn't put it, they put it all together forward at the same time, but they didn't put it all
They put it
forward
in a
together in
separate
one
document.
package.
So
So
each
essentially,
section can be done on its own, is that correct?
each section is an individual annexation. So each one stands alone as far as the remonstration process and that, which, believe me, has caused a little bit of confusion, but we've been doing a lot of education with the property owners on, no, you can't sign them all. Where do you live? That kind of stuff. And so each one is an individual annexation. So
Do we know how much pushback we're getting on this particular section?
Well, this is 1A and 2, right?
I could ask the auditor's office, but I think it's probably premature for a lot of this. I
Right.
think what they are seeing at this point is a lot of people coming in and requesting the petitions, and then they're going to go out and talk to their neighbors or whomever and get them signed. And we really won't know until they're returned if they're successful, how successful, and those kind of things. I can get a general feel for how many petitions have been requested for each area. So we could know the potential, and there's up to 25 signatures per petition. So we would know the maximum, but we wouldn't have any idea the number until they come back.
Okay, thanks.
Well, the only ones that could be decided without going to court probably would be 3, 4, and 5. And I don't think because they don't have enough waivers to prevent the remonstrance. So you think, well, I guess if they don't get enough signatures, even from people who have signed a waiver, then you would know. But otherwise, we won't know until whenever court decides.
Mhm.
But a lot of work for people and stress.
Well, and a lot of unknowns for somebody like us or Lisa, who's trying to figure something out that goes through there and how to pay for it, et cetera. But that's the way it is.
Well, that's why I was asking, because if we think we're gonna, so here's the next question that's kind of maybe off the rails a little bit, but if we think there's gonna be a lot of pushback and we're under the gun on this project, do we have enough time to do a bond here? Because if there's debt, then it continues, right?
When I spoke with bond counsel, we have until the effective date of the annexation, which is January 1, 2024, to issue debt.
Right.
So we should have a good feel on pushback. We just won't know how many, we don't know how the waivers will be treated until court tells us. But we could always put debt in place if there's to the extent we think we can make payments.
Yeah, I think that's something we should think about. If we think that this is going to hamper the ability to get this project completed as designed, that might be something that we should consider.
Oh, I agree totally. And Richard sort of facetiously said that himself after we were told these things and talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm being serious.
Oh, I am. Hey, I'm dead serious too.
Yep.
That's going to be one of the options.
Yeah, I think we need to push forward with the opportunities that we have to utilize the resources that are available to us. And I, for one, am not going to let the city of Bloomington get in the way of any of that.
And I don't think they want to, based on the discussion we had with the mayor at the chamber.
Yeah, I don't think they do
months
either.
ago.
Yeah, but it's not up to him entirely.
No, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, as
there's
Richard
always
said, we got
there's
the
always that
tools.
political chance that that it
Right.
wouldn't get approved through one of its other approval processes. So if we think we can just handle it, maybe it's just better if we just do it.
Yeah, well, I think the issue in that particular southwest TIF area is that we need a project piece that is discrete enough that we can fund it with our expected revenue over the life of that we can have for that TIF. So we can't build the bridge. There's never going to be enough money in that TIF to build that bridge. But if we can carve out a piece of that, which is a distinct part of the activity that needs to occur there, right-of-way purchase, segment of road up to the bridge, something like that, that is discrete enough and serves that particular TIF district, then I think we can go ahead and issue a bond if we can show that we can pay for it over the interval that we've got available. Now, the problem is that so much of that revenue from that TIF got pulled from under us when that hospital went not for profit.
Right.
So there isn't a lot of TIF revenue being generated there at the present time.
Right.
And so we're constrained by that. But if we can find something where we've got a revenue stream over a period of time that can pay for a discrete project, which enables that thoroughfare to be done, then I think that's a viable thing for us to do.
And
And
Lisa,
Uh-huh.
I was going to ask, I'm taxing some old brain cells, but leverage of other funding, would that help with other things?
So that's what I was going to say. It's a good idea if you can use the funding source. Sorry, my dog. Because the major bridge fund, you can use it for the major portion of that bridge, but you also have the connections to that bridge from the existing roadways. So if there's a way to use funding from the TIF or from a bond to help build the roadway portion, definitely helps, because the cost of the project's gone up so much because of the size of the bridge. Again, major bridge fund will carry a lot of that, but you still have to use revenue from other sources to be able to assist with the building of the roadway. So yeah, definitely. And there's only 2.7 million allocated from MPO funding in that fiscal year to help assist with the project. Other than that, it's all local funding. And you're talking, I want to say, take 2.7 million, you're probably talking $10 million. And a portion, the major portion of that was coming from Major Bridge. But if you can bond to help fund that project, it would be desirable.
And I'm just going to speak without a lot of knowledge, but I wish Greg were still here because he may know the answer to this question. Could we do a bond and pledge both Major Bridge Fund and TIF funds towards it, so that you could do your discrete project could be much larger and you'd have some surety that there would be another funding source if for some reason something else happened in that TIF that affected revenue. I mean, luckily I'm in contact with bond counsel and also our financial advisor on this other item. I can ask them that question to see if that's an option.
That would be good.
Good,
That'd be
please
great.
do.
Yeah. Roll it into one big bond and pay for it from several different sources.
And again, I've never seen that done. I don't know anything about it other than it's a great question to ask them.
Yeah, well, they seem to be doing all kinds of strange things around the state these days. Yeah, that sounds like a good question to ask.
Jeff, did you want to just, the only
I
other
was
item is
gonna-
that swap?
Yeah, and what has happened, if you recall, when we got the right-of-way for the Profile Parkway extension, it included the portion of the connector to Jonathan Drive that was part on the old ABB site. That ABB site either has sold or is in the process of selling to a different group. The new group approached us, and I think it was because of our right-of-way package for the Vernal Pike connector, or the Vernal Pike connector. I call it the Bridge Over the Railroad project, and indicated that they would be interested in swapping that right-of-way that was going to go to Jonathan Drive with the right of way we're requesting for the Vernal Pike project. I think Lisa's looked at it and talked about it with the engineer, and it makes sense from a couple of perspectives. One, it gets us the right of way for the project we know we want to do shortly. And it also, I think that she anticipates struggling getting the other half of that right of way to continue that road all the way to Jonathan Drive. I think included in that, it would be, in that conversation would be, I am not county planning and we are not county planning and the commissioners aren't county planning. So we can have no authority to say whether the plat map would be amended or anything like that. But we're just talking about the right of way itself. And I think that I spoke with it briefly with the commissioners. They're interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on that concept, because ultimately I believe it's titled to the county, and so it would take a commissioner decision to move forward. But they wouldn't want to do that without your guys' input.
Well, it sounds like a possibility.
At first blush, it sounds like a good possibility.
Yeah,
We don't know if we're ever going to want to build it, and we know we want to build the other over the railroad project. And if, whoever the owner is, if they've got something they want to put there that needs a road,
right.
they'll have to talk to us or build it themselves. So sounds good to me.
Yeah, as I recall, the comprehensive plan right now indicates that connector will exist. So when they go to planning to develop the property, they're going to run into that independent of us. And so they could trade the property and still have to build the road eventually. So I mean, if it gets us moving forward on the Vernal Pike connector, I think that's a good thing to do. We can't tell them that they don't have to build that road down to Jonathan Drive because we're willing to agree to, or we think it's a good idea to swap the parcels. But that's not a planning decision we're making. It's a financial transaction that we think the county could do, and that the county decision about the connector to Jonathan Drive from Profile Parkway will be independent of any decision we would make regarding the Vernal Pike connector. They are essentially separate issues for us.
Right.
And planning is certainly going to have something to say about the connector because there will be connectivity issues involved in the development of the Profile Parkway area.
Right.
And that's probably all going to be pretty far down the road, and we want to get over the railroad project going.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw in the paper that there was the sale has gone through for, I think it was 8 parcels, something like that.
Right.
8 or 9 parcels. That has been completed now. At least it's had been recorded in the paper. So.
Well, I think we have 2 secured, and then out there in limbo and negotiations.
Right. No, I think that
Okay.
getting the right of way to do the overpass and finish up that connector is the most important thing we've got to do in that area now.
Agree.
It would be a good thing to get done.
Yeah. It's just that I would want to make sure that that both the commissioners and the property owner realize that by swapping the property, they're not removing from the long-term plan that connector that goes from Profile Parkway to Jonathan Drive. That's a different issue. And there may be others connector streets that they'll be required to build over time, depending on how that property is developed.
True.
Yep.
Okay, what else do we have? Unless we want to, do we have?
Well, is that sufficient, Jeff? Discussion?
Yeah, I think that I'll pass that along to the commissioners. And if they have any additional questions,
Okay,
we'll be happy to bring them to your meeting next month. I don't see this as being a extremely urgent, has to have it done anytime soon. But I think communicating with the where we are in the process with the new owner is important.
Yeah. Very, very important. I'm making sure that planning doesn't give it away either.
well, and I don't think I don't think planning should be given the impression that because we are thinking it's a good idea to make the land swap, that we think it's a good idea to get rid of the connector down to Jonathan Drive.
Well, that's why I said what I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that has not been insinuated at all in any of the conversations.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Lisa.
Good, Lisa.
All right, Jeff, you got anything else you wanted to bring up?
I think that's got me covered.
Okay. Jim, anything from you?
No, I'm good. Glad to be back. Sorry I missed the other meetings, and this was a good one.
Iris, anything from
agree.
you? Anything else from you, Iris?
No, I'm just glad to be on board again. In
Okay.
action.
And Lisa, anything from you?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, and I have nothing else to add. I think we've been through the mill here. I've been working with Jeff on these property designation and mapping issues and understanding all this for the North Park stuff. And I'll continue to be involved in that, I'm sure. I really want to thank him for the effort he went to see if we can get the correct properties identified. And we know there are some differences that exist in those records that we're now working to get corrected. And I think we've got to, we're getting the information that we need to go forward here. The one thing I will mention is that came up in our discussions with the GIS folks was that having found these discrepancies in the North Park, we probably need to start to do a really serious look at the West Side TIF and our other TIF districts sometime in the next several months, so that by the time we get to our annual reviews next spring, we've got accurate lists of the properties that are involved in the TIF districts and a correct assessment as to how much we've been able to capture from each of those projects, each of those properties. But that's an ongoing thing that we'll do. And with that, I have nothing else. Anybody else in the last call?
Nope.
If
See you
not,
next month.
we're ready to adjourn.
See you next month. Thanks all.